I have this abs-shaped body pillow, and I can't sleep at night unless I'm hugging and rubbing it. One night, half asleep, I got up to use the bathroom and accidentally walked into the landlord's son's room. I climbed into bed and, out of habit, lifted up the shirt on the pillow and started rubbing it back and forth. Suddenly, a raspy voice came from above my head. "Had enough. I'm about to react here." After work, I came home, and the moment I opened the door, I saw this tall, handsome guy sitting on my couch. I live alone. My first thought was that a burglar had broken in. I backed toward the door, ready to run to the landlord who lives next door. But that burglar was insanely good-looking. Long legs, broad shoulders, pale skin. Honestly, I'm weak for good looks. I couldn't help it. I stopped and stole another glance. Something felt off, though. What kind of burglar lounges on someone else's couch sipping tea like he owns the place? The way he sat there, calm and composed, you'd think this was his house. But the landlord never mentioned renting out any other rooms. And with that icy expression, he didn't look easy to talk to. I figured I'd better go ask the landlord what was going on. I had just turned to leave when his voice rang out behind me. "Stop." I couldn't pretend I didn't hear, so I turned back and asked cautiously, "Who are you? And why are you in my apartment?" The guy let out a low chuckle and, with his slender fingers, picked up his teacup and brought it to his lips. After a light sip, he leaned back against the couch and looked at me, clearly amused. "You sure this is your apartment?" he asked, tone mocking. "I leave for a bit, and suddenly my place becomes yours?" I stood there, clutching my purse, completely at a loss. This is his place? Just as I was trying to make sense of it, the door next door opened, and Aunt Dawson, my landlord, came hurrying over. She had a piece of sugarcane in her mouth and paused when she saw the confused look on my face. As if realizing something, she pulled me behind her protectively and pointed the sugarcane at the guy. "Did you say something mean to Jennifer? Why are you being so rude? You bought this house forever ago and never moved in. The poor girl had nowhere to stay. What's wrong with me renting it out to her?" The guy looked like he found it all ridiculous. He stood up from the couch and said, "Mom, this is my future marital home. You just let someone else move in? Without even asking me?" He glared. "You think it's okay to let someone else live in my wedding house?" Aunt Dawson fell silent for a beat, then mumbled in defense. "Well, I mean, it's not even certain you'll need it for that. Wedding house? Really? Got a girlfriend yet? Who are you marrying?" The guy looked utterly embarrassed. He flopped back on the couch, crossed one leg over the other, and said firmly, "I don't care. It's my house. I bought it for me and my future wife." Then he pointed his chin at me. "So who is she to be living here?" Aunt Dawson put her hands on her hips and replied lazily, "Call it your lucky day." I could feel the guy's stare growing more and more intense. If looks could kill, I'd be dead 1,688 times over. Aunt Dawson went on, "Jennifer's kept your place spotless. If not for her, would you be sitting here drinking tea the moment you landed back in the country? If she hadn't cleaned it, you'd need 3 days and nights of scrubbing before even thinking of staying." That made me feel a little guilty. Truth is, I've never cleaned this place. The guy raised an eyebrow and scoffed. "I hire a cleaning lady to come every week. She should know better." Then it all clicked. "So that's why a cleaner shows up every week. I always thought Aunt Dawson sent her." If it weren't for the cleaning lady telling me my wife seemed to be hiding someone at home and that I should come check it out, I wouldn't even know my wife and her boyfriend were living here. His gaze swept over me again, full of disdain. My face burned instantly. I knew exactly what he meant by hiding someone. He was talking about my abs-shaped body pillow in the bedroom. When I first moved in, the master bed was way too big. Sleeping alone felt so empty. So I bought this 6-foot-tall body pillow with sculpted abs online. The texture was incredible. It was like a stand-in boyfriend. Every night, I'd hug it, touch it, and sleep like a baby. It was about the size of a real person, so under the blanket, it probably did look like a man. No wonder the cleaner got the wrong idea. I scratched my head. There was no good way to explain that. Honestly, the pillow's shape was kind of outrageous. I didn't want anyone else seeing it. In the end, Luke and I reached a temporary truce under one roof, mostly because my lease with Aunt Dawson wasn't up yet. And since Luke had just returned to the country, he didn't have time to find a new place. He also refused to move back in with his parents. So, in the wedding house he bought for himself, he was stuck choosing between the kids' room and the guest bedroom, and ended up in the latter. Meanwhile, I'd already turned the master bedroom into a total dog den. I felt bad and offered, "I can move out and give you back the master." But his expression, already frosty, turned downright sour. "I don't sleep in a room someone else has used." I shut my mouth, a little sulky, but still muttered, "But I've lived here for so long." Luke had sharp ears and snorted, "I'm gonna sell the place soon. Once I buy a new one, I'll be out of here." I went quiet, forcing the owner to move out while I stayed talk about upside-down logic. When Luke first moved in, I was really nervous. I tiptoed around, scared I'd piss him off and get kicked out. But after living together for a month, I realized he was super busy with work. Even though we shared the same roof, I barely saw him. I gradually let down my guard. I'd even stopped closing my door when stepping out. One weekend, Luke happened to be home. He walked past my room, glanced inside, and paused when he saw the body pillow sprawled on the bed. He stared at it for a few seconds, then chuckled. "What the hell is that?" I froze. "Huh?" Luke pointed his chin toward the pillow. "Ugly in a unique way, matches you perfectly." I wanted to disappear. Back in my room, I stared at those sculpted abs and fell into deep thought. I realized maybe having those abs exposed every night wasn't such a great idea, kind of indecent, and probably drawing some bad karma. So I finally gave in and bought the pillow some clothes. Now, every night before I sleep, I have one more step, lifting the shirt and rubbing those abs. Not gonna lie, it felt even more immersive after dressing the pillow. I went to shower. When I reached for the body wash, I found the bottle empty. Thinking Luke wasn't home, I wrapped myself in a towel and went out to grab a new one. Just my luck, Luke had just come back from the gym. I couldn't find the new bottle anywhere and was wandering around the living room like a headless chicken. Behind me, Luke gave a dry cough, his annoyed voice following. "Can you put some damn clothes on? You think this place is yours alone?" Still searching, I apologized without looking back. "Sorry, I forgot where I put the new body wash." I finally found it in the storage cabinet. As I stood up and turned around, I saw Luke standing behind me the whole time. His ears and face were unnaturally red, sweat trickling down his cheeks and his breathing heavy and ragged, following the curve of his throat. What the? Was he doing high-intensity anaerobic training or something? His face was flushed like crazy. I didn't have time to think, and I was cold, so I grabbed the bottle and dashed back into the bathroom. After showering, I came out to find Aunt Dawson had arrived, holding a clay pot. "Freshly made beer duck," she announced. "You two better come eat." Aunt Dawson's cooking was legendary. Whenever she made something tasty, she'd always bring me a portion first. This time was no exception. I grabbed a bowl and rushed over. Luke frowned, clearly unimpressed. "Mom, I don't like duck." Aunt Dawson scoffed. "Who said this was for you? You think I'd cook personally just for you? Jennifer, come here." Luke was speechless as Aunt Dawson kept patting my head and asking if I liked it. Thanks to her amazing cooking and gentle coaxing, I somehow ended up eating the whole pot of beer duck. It was delicious, but I got tipsy. Just as I was starting to feel lightheaded, Aunt Dawson slapped her forehead. "Oh no, I forgot you can't handle alcohol. I put in a bit too much, ended up dumping half your uncle's Mau Tai in there." I froze. That night, I passed out without even hugging the abs pillow. Who knows how much time had passed when I woke up with a full bladder. My head spinning, I stumbled out of bed on autopilot toward the bathroom, and then stumbled back, also on autopilot. I walked in, took off my slippers, climbed into bed, lifted the blanket, and slid underneath. It might have been my imagination, but the blanket smelled incredibly fresh and clean, way too good to be mine. I couldn't help it. I pressed my face into it and nuzzled like a content cat. How come I never noticed how good this blanket smelled before? After finding a comfortable position, I, as usual, scooted toward the abs pillow. But the moment I got close, I paused. Why did it feel firmer than usual? And kind of warm? Whatever. My head was spinning. A few hallucinations were normal. I instinctively lifted the shirt on the abs pillow and placed my hand on the abs. The next second, the abs flinched, like they'd been startled. My hand froze for a moment, but I couldn't be bothered to open my eyes. I went right back to my usual routine rubbing, feeling, back and forth. For some reason, tonight the abs felt especially good, solid, just the right amount of firmness. I've never touched real abs before, but these felt damn real. With my eyes closed, Luke's face suddenly popped into my head. Weird thing was, imagining his face didn't feel out of place at all. It felt exactly like I was touching his abs. Gotta say, Luke's body looked like a dream. Normally, I'd get sleepy after a few rubs, but tonight, the more I touched, the more awake I became. It was even enjoyable. I swallowed hard and started to explore beyond just the abs, letting my hand wander upward. My hand landed on a small bump. What part of the abs pillow was that? I didn't remember feeling this spot before. Just as I was puzzling over it, a soft cough came from above, followed by a tight, raspy voice. Have you touched enough? I think I'm having a reaction. That familiar voice jolted me awake. Luke! I didn't dare open my eyes, praying it was all a dream. My hand froze where it was on his chest. Then click, the nightlight turned on. I looked up. In the dim yellow light, I saw him glaring down at me, cheeks flushed, brows furrowed. His handsome face was tense with frustration. My own face burned. I dropped my gaze and stammered, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Luke cut me off. If you're that sorry, then maybe move your hand off my chest. That only made me more flustered. Instinctively, I curled my fingers, squeezed a little. Luke groaned, clearly struggling, and gritted out, Jennifer, get out now and I'll pretend none of this happened. My brain completely shut down. I scrambled out of bed and fled to my own room. Just as I reached my door, I heard the bathroom door shut behind me. The sound of running water filled the quiet apartment. Lying on my own bed, the silence helped my dazed mind slowly regain clarity. Had I just sexually harassed Luke? Okay. I'd always secretly drooled over that model-like face of his. But it was just in my head. I didn't even dare cross the line in my dreams. Yet in real life, I had totally groped him top to bottom. And that look of shock on Luke's face. He must be thinking the quiet, well-behaved me was actually some wild perv. You never really know people. Quiet on the outside, beast on the inside, that's me. I stared at the ceiling, totally lost. As dawn broke, I finally opened my phone and pulled up the rental app. I decided to move out, but after browsing around, I couldn't find a place cheaper or better than this one. Back then, I clicked with Aunt Dawson right away. She liked me so much, she gave me a super low rent. That's why I signed a long-term lease in the first place. Looks like I can't leave anytime soon. Super frustrating. I scratched my head and rolled over in bed, bumping into the abs pillow. This little disaster, I touched it again. It didn't feel nearly as good as Luke. Even more frustrating. Why was I thinking of him again? I kicked the pillow off the bed. While I was still agonizing over how to face Luke, work got crazy. Projects piled up one after another, and I was so busy I barely had time to breathe. Every day, I came home later than the last, with no time to dwell. But I noticed every time I got home, Luke was on the couch, sometimes reading, sometimes sipping tea. And every single time I walked in, he'd immediately get up and head to his room, like I was the plague. One night, after working late, I was starving and seriously craving hot pot. So I headed to Heidelau alone, grabbed a queue number, and waited for a table. If I had known I'd still be 10 tables away after 2 hours, I would have left without looking back. But now, after waiting that long, walking away felt like a total waste. Even though I was starving, I clenched my teeth and kept chewing on crispy rice while waiting patiently. Finally, at 3 a.m., I got my Heidelau full price, no student discount. Just as I finished ordering, my phone buzzed with a message. I opened it. It was from Luke. "Why aren't you home yet?" A few seconds later came another. My mom asked. I thought for a moment and replied, "Aunt Dawson is always asleep before 10. How would she know I'm not home?" The typing indicator blinked for 3 whole minutes before Luke responded. "She has insomnia." I had no idea how to respond. He asked again, "So are you coming back tonight or not?" What kind of question was that? Like we were something. When I didn't answer for a while, he sent another. "It's not like that. I just don't want you dying out there and messing up my property sale." Classic two-faced Luke, I explained. I was lining up for hot pot. I just got seated, so I'll probably be back late tonight. I'll keep quiet and try not to disturb you. If I do bother you, feel free to yell at me. Luke replied, "Just don't randomly crawl into my bed again. Also, I don't care how late it is. Don't bring anyone home." I'm a clean freak. I didn't even know how to respond. To prove I was alone, I snapped a photo of my hot pot. The seat across from me had a teddy bear plush. Luke asked, "Just you and a bear? What, he's not keeping you company?" I blinked. "Who?" Then it hit me, he was talking about my Ab's body pillow. Who the hell brings something like that to dinner in public? I replied, "He only keeps me company in bed. Taking him out would be a bit much." Luke didn't reply again. When I got home full and satisfied, the living room light was still on. Luke was there, sitting silently. The warm yellow glow of the chandelier lit up his expressionless face. Maybe it was my imagination, but I thought I caught a trace of loneliness in his lowered gaze. The place was toasty, so I took off my coat as I walked in. The soft lining brushed against my neck, and that familiar itch flared up again. I'd tried on a necklace today and had a mild allergic reaction. Now the spot where it had touched was unbearably itchy. I couldn't stop scratching. The skin on my neck turned bright red. As Luke passed me on his way to his room, his eyes paused briefly on my neck. He didn't say a word, but his face looked especially sour, like something had deeply displeased him. I suddenly felt inexplicably down. He really can't stand me, huh? And to think I actually had a bit of a crush on him before. Well, not anymore. He clearly doesn't like me. We're not even remotely on the same page. The next evening, while I was cooking noodles in the kitchen, my mum suddenly video called me. I panicked and looked around. Thankfully, Luke wasn't nearby. The noodles were only halfway done, so I couldn't leave. I turned down the volume and answered the call in the kitchen. But the moment I picked up, my mom's booming voice still came through. "Jennifer, it's almost New Year. Do you have a boyfriend yet?" I closed my eyes in exasperation. Knew that was coming. I recited my usual script. "No boyfriend. Look at me. Do I look like I have one?" "I haven't even held a man's hand, Mom." Abs were a different story. Hidden achievements. My mom raised her voice again. "Why not find someone?" I rubbed my forehead. "You think it's that easy? And you live alone, we worry. Wait, who's behind you?" Following her gaze, I turned around. Luke had appeared out of nowhere, walking past me to grab a Coke from the fridge. When he noticed me looking, he tapped the can against the air lightly and said in a calm voice, "Just grabbing something. Hope I'm not interrupting." Then he walked off. My mom saw the whole thing. Luke hadn't even left the room before she demanded, "That guy behind you is your boyfriend, right? And you say you live alone? You're even wearing matching pajamas. He's so handsome. Mum approves. Bring him home for New Year, got it?" I scrambled to explain. "Mom, He's not. But the call suddenly ended. I checked Wi-Fi was out. I peeked out of the kitchen and saw Luke holding the unplugged router. He gave me an apologetic smile. Game was laggy. Had to check the router. Forgot you were on a call. Sorry about that. After that, no matter how many texts or voice notes I sent, my mum wouldn't listen. She was fully convinced Luke was her future son-in-law. I was helpless, but deep down, I had a bad feeling. Like she was going to do something big behind my back. To avoid any messy emotional entanglements, I had to confirm Luke didn't have a girlfriend. I wanted to ask him directly, but chickened out thinking of how he usually treated me. So instead, I brought some fruit over to Aunt Dawson when I had a free moment. She was sunbathing and beamed when she saw me. She was talkative. I listened to her gossip about everyone in the complex before finally slipping in my question. Little Wang downstairs already has a second kid. Auntie, your son must be close too, right? At the mention of Luke, her smile faltered. Adjusting her reading glasses, she sighed. He's been back 2 months, and I haven't seen a single girl around him besides you. That second baby? Maybe in his next life. I feigned surprise. He doesn't even have a girlfriend? Silly girl. If he did, would he be living with you? Of course, he wants to live with someone he likes. I nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. If my mom did something outrageous, at least it'd be easier to handle. But still, I prayed she wouldn't do anything crazy. When I returned home from Aunt Dawson's, the front door was open. As I got closer, I heard voices, Luke and the cleaning lady. Mr. Luke, thank goodness you're back. Your wife's always sneaking around. There's always a man in her bed. Did you catch him? A woman like that isn't worth it. You're too good for her. Luke chuckled. Ma'am, under the covers is a big plush she really likes. She's not that kind of person. Please don't assume the worst. The cleaning lady kept going. Still, you should be careful. You're gone so often. What about in the future? Your wife doesn't seem like the faithful type. Luke's tone suddenly turned cold. I know my wife better than anyone. I'll make sure to spend more time with her. And from now on, we won't be needing your cleaning services anymore. Also, I don't ever want to hear you talk about her like that again. Otherwise, you won't be working here anymore. I kept replaying his words in my mind, and suddenly, it didn't feel like he disliked me all that much. At the very least, he was willing to stand up for me. Luke threw a few more harsh lines before the cleaner left in embarrassment. I peeked out from behind the door only to bump straight into him. He stared at me, clearly knowing I'd heard everything. He opened his mouth to say something, but I spoke first. Sorry for the trouble, Luke scoffed. You know you're a pain, right? If you really mean it, throw out that ugly doll and show me you're serious. I blurted out. No way, I can't sleep without it. What? Did it save your life or something? I answered honestly. It's got the best feel of all the ones I've ever bought. What else am I supposed to hug at night? Luke narrowed his eyes and smirked. Oh? So you're saying it feels better than I do? I mumbled. I can touch it whenever I want. You're off limits. At that, Luke suddenly stepped closer. There were only 2 fists worth of space between us. I could see my own reflection in his eyes. What if I said my girlfriend could touch me whenever she wants? I scratched my head, still confused. And what's that got to do with me? Luke froze, his mouth twitching. He knocked lightly on my head and gritted through his teeth. Go live happily ever after with that ugly doll. What the talk it out. Don't hit people. He turned and walked away. Somehow, I was now holding a tube of anti-itch cream in my hand. A week later, my bad feeling proved true. My mum showed up. No one knows a daughter better than her own mother. The moment she decided Luke was her son-in-law, she couldn't wait. Forget waiting till New Year, they bought tickets and flew in right away. I'd been too busy all day to check my phone. After work, I saw a video my mum had sent. She and my dad were chatting happily with Luke's parents. I felt like the sky was falling. I rushed home, only to find Luke wasn't back yet. I reached for the door but pulled my hand back, thinking I should message him and ask what to do. But the next second, Luke was right in front of me. "You guarding the door or going in?" he asked, while pressing his thumb on the lock to open the door. I panicked and stopped him, explaining everything about what was happening inside, then waited anxiously for his reaction. But to my surprise, Luke didn't get mad. Not even a hint of displeasure. In fact, he actually looked like he was in a pretty good mood. Weird. I glanced up at him and saw him holding his forehead, back turned, shoulders trembling. I couldn't tell if he was laughing or crying. Whatever. Prioritize the apology. "I'm sorry. I didn't know my mom came, and I had no idea they'd actually meet. If I had, I would have stopped them. I caused you more trouble again. I'll go in and explain." Just as I reached for the door, Luke stopped me this time. He pulled out his phone and brought up the home surveillance footage. He held it between us. Aunt Dawson's voice came through clearly. "I just adore Jennifer. She's clever and sweet. I dream of her being my daughter-in-law. The bride price is non-negotiable, 888 yuan." My mom tried to backpedal. "Come on, we really get along, and Luke is such a great kid. That number's a bit much. Just the usual amount is fine." "We'll bring a good dowry." Aunt Dawson cut her off. "No way. If we only ask for 168, Jennifer might think we don't like her. My number's the standard. 888. 800. Not a penny less. No arguments." My mouth twitched. How did it get this far? I looked up at Luke. He had a little smirk on his lips. "Why are you showing me this footage?" Things were spiraling out of control. What good would surveillance do now? Look how happy they are. You wouldn't want to ruin their fun, would you? I fell silent. If my mom found out this was all fake, she'd be devastated. And if the guy were really Luke, I wouldn't even mind. Luke straightened up and asked, "So what do you think is a fair bride price? Of all times, why was he asking something so ridiculous now?" I didn't feel like playing games. "It's already 880. 800. Might as well round it up to 1,000,000. Luke nodded immediately. "Sure, sounds good." "What the hell do you mean, sure?" Then he opened the door and pulled me in to meet our parents. I stood beside him, fidgeting with my clothes, a strange feeling rising inside me. For a second, I imagined what it'd be like if all of this were real. After dinner, we saw off our beaming parents. Luke stepped out to the balcony to make a call. The apartment shifted from lively to dead quiet. It felt like something was missing. I was all torn up inside, so I messaged my bestie to spill everything. In the end, I asked, "Do you think I should confess?" "Girl, he's hot, rich, and right under your nose. You seriously haven't confessed yet. Have you gone through withdrawal or something? How are you holding back?" "Fine. I've never gone through withdrawal. So I figured why not just go for it? Worst case, he says no, and I move out." I lay on the couch trying to figure out the best way to tell Luke. Before I knew it, I fell asleep. Maybe I was too tired, because I started dreaming not long after. In the dream, Luke scooped me up in his arms. My face was pressed against his solid chest. Suddenly, I became aware, hey, it's a dream. Why not get a little bold? Luke wouldn't know anyway. Meek and mild in real life. But in my dreams, I went full-on bold. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him hard. It was my first kiss, so it was more gnawing than kissing. But he seemed inexperienced, too clumsy but passionate. The scene shifted. I was lying in bed alone. Luke was gone. Out of habit, I reached for the abs pillow, lifted its shirt, and rubbed it like always. Only, this time, the texture felt better than ever. Weirdly, just like Luke. And the abs pillow was acting weird, like it had a mind of its own and kept moving. Annoyed, I sat up and pinned it down. What could I say? In dreams, I had no chill. I was not letting him off the hook. But when I opened my eyes the next morning and saw it wasn't a pillow, but Luke lying next to me, I shut my eyes again in a flash, hoping it was just a hallucination. But within a second, I peeked again. He wasn't wearing a shirt. Not that I wanted to look or anything. I squinted. Luke's skin was pale, muscles defined, and his chest was marked with red scratch lines. My heart dropped. Those looked like my doing. My gaze traced upward. His lips were swollen and glossy, looking ridiculously kissable. No, wait, they looked like they'd been kissed into that state. My mind flashed back to the dream, every scene, every move. It all matched. It wasn't a dream. I really did throw myself at him. Luke was still asleep. I took a deep breath to calm my racing heart and shot up from bed like a spring-loaded fish. The first thing I saw was my ab's body pillow crammed into the trash can. All 6 feet of it stuffed into that tiny bin, clearly way too big to fit. Whoever did it must have really hated it. And the culprit? Obviously, I glanced at the man beside me, sleeping like a damn model. I went silent. Seriously? Could have just talked it out. Why take it out on a defenseless plush? When Luke finally woke up, I was busy trying to pull my ab's pillow out of the trash. It was wedged in tight. I had to tug like I was in a tug of war just to get it loose. At some point, Luke appeared beside me and muttered in his low voice, "Wasn't enough to grope me. You still want that thing too." I froze mid-pull and played dumb. What did I do to you last night? Forget it. You and I aren't on the same wavelength. Me. He pried my hands off the ab's pillow and took them in his own. Clearing his throat, he said, "I like you. Everything you did to me last night. Those were all amazing, wonderful things in my book. Jennifer, how about you stop touching that stupid pillow and start touching the real deal, huh?" He brought my hand to his abs. My brain short-circuited from the sudden confession. My eyes darting everywhere, finally landing back on the poor plush still stuck in the trash can. Luke was annoyed. He gently patted my cheek and gritted out, "Just answer me or the pillow." Seriously? Was he really jealous of a pillow? I was just trying to figure out how to get it out without destroying the trash can. I looked at the scrunched up plush, then looked at Luke. Who needs fake when you've got the real thing? I stopped pretending and reached out toward the real deal in front of me, the man who looked like he was about to cry if I didn't respond. At our engagement, when I saw an extra 1.888 million in my bank account, I was stunned. I took the balance to Luke and asked, "Where did this extra million come from?" He wasn't surprised at all, just calmly said, "From me." Wasn't it supposed to be 888, 800? That was already a lot. That's from my parents. This is from me. It's too much. It's not. For you, there's no such thing as too much. As he said it, he planted a soft kiss on my forehead. Luke might seem cold and distant on the surface, but deep down he's a total pushover. Like when he wanted to move into the master bedroom with me, he respected my wishes and never forced it. Funny. I remember a certain man standing at the bedroom door, saying I was just playing hard to get, and that he'd never sleep in a room someone else had used. Last name Dawson? Ring any bells? Know him, Luke? After getting teased a few times, Luke was starting to build some immunity. This time, he was prepared. Hugging a pillow, he looked off to the side and said, "Whoever said that clearly had no taste. Definitely wasn't me. I was born to warm my wife's bed." Then he glanced down, tapped a few times on his phone, and a sweet chime rang from mine. "Let me in, babe. Tonight, I'm applying to be your cuddle doll." While I glanced down to check the payment notification, he leaned in and kissed the corner of my mouth. "Good girl. Stop playing with your phone. Play with me instead."
Extra from Luke's perspective. The cleaning lady told me, "Your wife is hooking up with some guy at home." I had never heard something so absurd in my life. First off, I don't have a wife. Second, no one's supposed to be living in my house. I thought, what the hell was this, a haunting? I cut my overseas work short and flew home. The moment I walked in, I could tell someone had been living there. I figured my mom must have rented it out. I walked through the house, and when I got to the master bedroom, a faint, pleasant scent hit me. It was oddly comforting. I'd come back brimming with anger, but somehow that scent calmed me down. After a long wait, the so-called wife from the cleaner's story, came home. Her first reaction when she saw me? She ran. I found that kind of cute. But the more I thought about someone else living in the place I bought to be my wedding home, the more pissed off I got. I didn't have a kind word for anyone, especially her. I kept telling myself I'd sell the place and buy a new one. After all, that tiny guest room was suffocating. I lay in bed with my hands behind my head, thinking about real estate deals, but her face kept popping into my mind, distracting me every time. Screw it. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep. Then the door creaked open. In the dim light from outside the window, I saw her. I frowned, wondering why she was here. When the bed dipped beside me, I realized she was sleepwalking. She'd gone into the wrong room. I sat up, ready to leave, but then I felt my shirt being lifted and a cold hand sliding across my abs. I instinctively tried to move away, but she held me down with surprising strength. She was getting bolder by the second, and I was getting hotter, literally. I'd heard waking a sleepwalker could be dangerous, but if I didn't wake her, we'd both be in danger. Turns out she wasn't sleepwalking, she was drunk. The cold shower I took afterward, never again. I think it was after that night I started watching her without meaning to. I'd track the time she got off work, didn't feel settled until she came home. If she was late, I couldn't focus on anything until she walked through the door. It was a bad habit, but I couldn't help it. I longed for her to come home, but when she did, I couldn't bring myself to spend time around her. I kept thinking about that night, how I lost control. What did she think of me? Besides, she seemed to already have a boyfriend. There were men's slippers at the door, sports jerseys on the balcony, dress pants, all signs saying, "Stay away." But later, she told me she lived alone. Said she got scared sometimes, so she bought all that stuff to make it seem like a man lived there. Then one day, I overheard her talking to her mom. I was in my room gaming when I heard her say she didn't have a boyfriend. Without a second thought, I walked out. If she didn't have a boyfriend, then why couldn't that person be me? And if she really needed abs to fall asleep, I'd gladly volunteer mine. Hell, I'd enjoy every second of it.